Hey there everyone, and welcome to Bill's Retro Gaming Show. On today's video, I've got a look at a cab that was rumored to come out from Arcade1up a couple of years ago, but for several reasons never actually made it out. However, it looks like someone in the home arcade community has stumbled on an actual working prototype of this particular cab, and I've got some interesting details about it. I'll tell you all about it right after this. Alright everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and checking out this video. Of course, if this happens to be your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscription button, click the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I put up a new video, give this one a thumbs up, and leave a comment below if you want to be part of the conversation. So the cab that I'm talking about is actually based on the arcade game Track and Field from Konami. Like I said, this was rumored to come out a couple of years ago. I'll get into more of that as we go on. But it looks like someone in the home arcade community by the name of Carlos Pineda has actually stumbled on a working prototype of this particular cab. So here it is. This is a look at an actual Track and Field prototype from Arcade1up. Now, I did reach out to Carlos Pineda. He gave me permission to use these photos, and he was supposed to give me a little bit more info on this cab. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to hear back from him yet, but I did want to get this out to you guys with some more information on some other things that I have found out about this. Now, the way the story goes, from my understanding, is that Carlos was looking to pick up a Killer Instinct from the particular individual who had this, and while he was at it, the guy said, hey, I've got this other cab if you want it. It's $50. So for $50, he wound up getting this Track and Field prototype. Now, this is another look at the cab from the side. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on the layout and everything with this, but one thing you'll notice down here is it looks like it's sitting on an NBA Jam riser. Now, this was obviously supposed to have its own riser, according to Carlos. The guy supposedly had it, but he couldn't find it at the time that he got this from him. He was supposed to look for it again and get him the riser. Not sure if that ever happened or not, but apparently there is a riser that actually goes with this. The guy just didn't have it on it at the time that Carlos was looking at this to pick it up. And then, of course, here's one other look at it, sitting in his car, ready to go back to his home. All right, and before I move on and talk a little bit more about this cab and what's going on with it, here's a quick look. Again, this is a video Carlos posted to Facebook of him playing the game really quick.
Get set. Ready. On your mark. Get set.
So again, huge shout out to Carlos and congratulations on picking this up. You definitely hit one of those finds that people don't stumble upon very often. So congrats to you. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about this prototype and what happened with it, what's going on with it. Now, one of the reasons that we know this is actually legit and a real prototype is because John D, formerly of Arcade1up, did post some comments regarding it, including a potential games list had this cab actually come to market. So here's John D's post. He posted this, I believe, not just to his new Media 1UP fan page, which you can see it here, but also to the official Arcade1up fan page and maybe a few other places. This is the list of games that would have come on what was supposed to be a Konami Sports Legacy arcade cabinet. You can see here you've got Track and Field along with two of its sequels, Hypersports and Konami 88. You get the basketball game Double Dribble. You've got the hockey game Blades of Steel. You've got bottom of the ninth baseball game, Super Basketball, Premium Soccer, Konami's Ping Pong, Main Event, which I believe is a wrestling game, The Final Round, which is a boxing game, Rack 'em Up, which is a pool game, Roller Games, which is kind of like a roller derby type game, and Yay Air Kung Fu. So that sounds like a really great games list. Got a little something from all kinds of different sports categories. Konami, very well known for their sports arcade games. Back when I first started doing YouTube, I did a couple of wish list videos, some cabs that I would love to see Arcade1up come out with. I did more of a straightforward Konami legacy cab for, their action type games. You got Contra, Gradius, Time Pilot, Frogger, all those kind of games on it. But then I also did one based specifically on sports games, figuring track and field being, the major one. A lot of these games were on my list, so I would have loved to have actually seen this come out. But what happened? Why did we never get this? Well, according to my source, this cab was actually put together somewhere around 2 years ago. So this would have put it right in the 2022 time frame. And that makes sense if you consider the fact that this is not a deluxe cab. This was actually going to be sitting on a riser. Now, the deluxes got introduced at the beginning of 2023. So, yeah, so for this being the year before that, that would have made sense. One of the things you'll also notice, and I'm going to go back to pictures on it again in a minute, is that there is no kind of coin door on the front at all. It just says track and field with a very plain front. No molded coin door, not even a coin door sticker. Now, again, that may just be because this was a prototype. Maybe they just didn't get that far with it. But the fact that there's nothing on there at all does seem like it kind of fits in 2022, maybe even late 2021, but most likely sometime in 2022. Now, those of you who've been following Arcade1up for a while, one of the things you might also remember is that Walmart at one point actually had a SKU, a placeholder SKU on their website for a track and field stool. So I was trying to find out some more information on this. Was a stool ever actually made? And what happened? Why did the deal fall through? So again, according to my source, they were actually really far along in a deal for this to get made, so much so that Walmart did produce a SKU for a stool. Like, it was basically this close to actually coming to market. However, unfortunately, again, the deal fell through. Now, why exactly it fell through, that I couldn't actually get. John wasn't at liberty to tell me exactly why the deal fell through, other than to say that this did actually get really, really close. But I can tell you this, that had this actually come to market, some changes definitely would have had to be made to that prototype. I don't believe, based on the games list and some other things about this cab, that it would have actually come out looking exactly like this particular prototype. So real quick, let's talk about the artwork on this cab. What you can see here is that on the left here is the prototype cab that Carlos owns. And on the right here is a side view of an actual track and field cab. Now, if you compare the artwork, and it's a little, with the tilt on this, it's a little hard to tell, but I think you can get a pretty good idea of the fact that the artwork was really, really close. I mean, like, they had replicated it almost exactly, based on, again, the size of Arcade1up cabs. The artwork on the left is a little bit cut off. Same thing over here. You can kind of see these little mountains in the background, and the bottom of this person here, you can't really see them. It's a little bit cut off, and again, maybe just a little on the side here. So artwork slightly cut off, but for the most part, pretty much exact. Of course, you've got up here, you've got the Konami logo. You've also got the Centuri logo, and then the list of sport events down here. So it would have been a really, really close looking machine. And then looking at another actual track and field cab, sorry that this picture isn't quite as good, but still, I wanted to see the marquee here. You look at the two marquees, and again, pretty much a 1-for-1. So you might look at this and think, that's fantastic. They were actually going to produce an arcade-accurate version of track and field. And I'm with you on that. I would have loved to see this come out looking just like that, as arcade-accurate as they could get it. Unfortunately, there are a few problems with this, and I do believe had this actually come to market, that a lot of the way that this looks most likely would have changed. Now, one of the things on there are the logos. You've got not just the Konami logo, but also Century. Now, while Konami did create the game, they did publish it in countries like Japan. Over here in the US, it was published by the company Century. Now, at one point, Konami did own a stake in Century and all that, but Century went out of business somewhere around like 1985, 1986. Track and Field came out in 83 with its sequel, Hyper Olympics, the next year in 84, and I believe Konami 88 was in 88, 87, 88, somewhere around there. But Century went out of business again sometime in 85 or 86. So that company no longer exists. Could they potentially still put the name on there? I suppose it's possible, but I don't know what the legality of that would have been. Now, the other issue with that is the actual side art on the cab. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Konami does not actually own that side art. It's actually owned by whoever the artist was who came up with it originally for the original arcade game. This has come up a few times in the past, including with Quarter Arcades, which wanted to make a 1/4 scale version of Track and Field. Actually had a contract signed, was really close to doing it with Konami, only to find out that they couldn't use the artwork. Now, could they have reached out to the artist? Could they have gotten it? Possibly, but at this stage of the game, they still haven't been able to do that. Now, this cab being 2 years ago, I'm going to guess that at that time, Arcade1up probably also didn't have access to that. Now, again, I could be completely wrong about that. Maybe they did find the artist. Maybe they did reach out. Maybe they did get permission. But to the best of my knowledge, it's not an easy cab to get the licensing for the artwork. So, had this come to market, there's a good chance that that artwork would have changed and it would not have been the arcade accurate version that you see here. So another thing real quick that I want to look at is the control panel on here. And again, if you look at the prototype on the left and a close-up look at a real one, you can see that again, they went very arcade accurate with this to the game Track and Field. Now again, while that's great, there are a couple of problems with that, and the biggest problem is that 14 games list. There's no way those particular games would have worked with this control panel being just like this. Now, I did, again, try to reach out to Carlos to find out if any games other than Track and Field were actually on this prototype. And my guess is that's probably the only game, although possibly Hyper Olympics and Konami 88 could be on this because I believe they had pretty much the same control layout, but a lot of those other games would not have made the cut on this. For instance, one of the games on the list was a fan favorite, Blades of Steel. Now, there's a couple of problems with this cab. Now, first off, both Blades of Steel and I believe Double Dribble, maybe even some other games on the cab, used more of a vertical monitor, whereas the Track and Field would have had a horizontal one. Not a big deal for Arcade1up. They tend to mix those all the time. I know a lot of people don't like that, but it's just something they do. So I don't think that would have been a reason not to include it. However, if you look at the control panel down here, you'll notice a couple of things. First off, that game primarily played with a trackball. You've then got this 3-button layout here. You've got shoot and pass face off, and then this giant fight button. Now, you could have gotten away with the 3-button layout on that cab. It just wouldn't have had the giant fight button. One of the regular size buttons would have been the fight one, but you would have had to add not just one, but 2 trackballs to the cab in order to make this particular game work. Now, I believe John Deese did say that was something that he would have wanted to do with this cab, is have trackballs on it. Again, not just for Blades of Steel, but Track and Field, and I think its sequels, some of those cabs actually did have trackballs on them too in the arcade to make it a little easier to play as opposed to the button masher that Track and Field was. Again, that's something else that people have pointed out with this, is that the Arcade1up buttons aren't always the greatest quality. In a game like Track and Field, those buttons probably would have gotten destroyed trying to play this. So having a trackball on there kind of, would have helped to save those. Or if they had maybe put some upgraded buttons on this particular one. Again, who knows with Arcade1up whether or not they would have gone that extra mile to do that. But the trackball for sure would have helped. Now, another game on the list was the basketball game Double Dribble. And you can see, again, here is an arcade cabinet. Obviously, this one's seen better days. It's pretty dusty, but at least you can kind of get an idea. Again, this one had a vertical monitor, but you see here, 3-button layout, so that's fine, but joysticks. And now this is true of several of the games on the list. Many of them were a joystick and 3-button layout. Maybe not, exactly in this configuration, but a lot of the games used that. So not only would you had to put a trackball on this, 2 trackballs, but possibly 2 joysticks as well. And I'm just not sure how well that would have worked in an Arcade1up cabinet to have that many different controls all laid out. Another game on the list was roller games, this roller derby game. Probably not as well known as some of the other ones, but still you see the joystick and 3-button layout down here. So again, with most of these games, they would have had to include some kind of joystick on it. Now, Yay or Kung Fu is kind of an interesting one. This was a single player game, but you had the joystick in the middle with 2 buttons on either side. Pretty sure those buttons mimic each other, so you can play left-handed or right-handed. So again, you could have done this with the button and with the 3-button and joystick layout. Would have been able to play this single player, even having it be on a 2-player cab. But just goes to show, again, would have been difficult to put this on there with the control panel the way it was laid out on the prototype. And then one last game that I want to bring up, because again, this one very unique compared to the other ones, is the main event, a wrestling game. You can see here, this is a 4-player game. You've got 4 joysticks on here with 2 buttons. You've got a tag button and the giant action button on it. Now, had they included this, it probably would have had to be a 2-player version of the game. Again, joystick and a couple of buttons. You could do it, you could get away with it, but it wasn't going to be the 4-player version like you see here in the arcades. So there you go, guys. I wanted to give you a little more in-depth look at this prototype from Arcade1up and some of the things that I think would have needed to change in order for this to come to market. Who knows? Maybe this is one of the reasons why it failed to actually come out. Maybe it had something to do with the artwork licensing or other licensing. Who knows? But apparently, this one actually did get really close to coming out. We've seen prototypes in the past, games like Double Dragon and things like that, that were nowhere near as close as I think this one was. I mean, again, so much so that Walmart had a SKU for a stool to go along with this. Now, the fact that they had a separate SKU for the stool leads me to believe that the stool would have been sold separately. This probably would not have been a cab and stool bundle, although who knows, maybe they would have done that at some point had this actually happened. But the fact that Walmart had a SKU for a stool made up means that this was probably, like I said, really, really close to actually coming out. And at some point, the deal just fell through. Now, it's unfortunate. Couldn't get more information on why it happens, but, things like that, companies, tend to keep to themselves. Said even John, no longer working with the company, still felt he wasn't at liberty to really talk about it. And I get that, and I understand that. I respect that. But, it's too bad that we'll unfortunately never know exactly what went wrong on this. But there you go. Again, just a little more in-depth look at this prototype. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have liked to have seen this actually come out? If so, is this one you would have been excited to pick up? I know I would have been excited for it. Little weird, like I said, if they had to put the trackball and joysticks on there. It would have been interesting to see that on the prototype, how it actually would have laid out. It was cool to see the prototype being such a close replica of the real arcade machine, but I am curious as to how it actually would have looked with the trackballs, with the joystick, in order to make that games list work. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But there you have it. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. Leave me those comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And if you are a subscriber and you want to help support the channel, I do have memberships turned on right now. It's the lowest tier, 99 cents. It's basically just thank you. I enjoy your channel. I'd like to support you type of thing. So if you're interested, go ahead and do that as well. That's all for this one. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care and happy gaming.